Hello everyone and welcome to this session of programming with Python. In this session we will see the concept of Python inheritance. So in the previous session we saw the concept of object oriented programming, the concept of classes, how do we create classes, how do we instantiate the object of a class, and the concept of initializer function. Now in this session we will see another important concept of object oriented programming, namely Python inheritance. So let's look at the objectives of our session. We will start by understanding the concept of Python inheritance. Afterward, we will see the different types of inheritance in Python, and in the end we will see the method overriding. Now what do we mean by inheritance in Python? Inheritance basically refers to a process when one class inherits properties from the other class. The class which inherits the property is known as child class, and the class whom properties are inherited is known as the parent class. So let's say we have a class called parent, and this class has a function that is, let's say, function 1, and this function does nothing, it just prints that I am a parent. And now we have another class called child, which also has some function, let's say function 2 self, and it does nothing, it just tells I am a child. Now if we want to inherit the properties of the parent class into this child class, then we will write the name of our parent class within the parentheses after the name of the child class. Now this child class is inheriting the properties of the parent class, or in short is inheriting the properties of these functions. So let's say now if I instantiate an object of the child class, and now if I want to call different function of the classes, let's say a dot function 2 and a dot function 1, and if I run this, we get output I am a child and I am a parent. Now it makes sense that we are getting an output of a I am a child, because I am a child is the result of the function 2, and function 2 belongs to the child class. But why are we getting I am a parent in the result when the A object is not the object of the parent class? It happens because the A object is inheriting the properties from the parent class, because the child class is also inheriting the properties from the parent class itself. So the A variable can access the different functions of the parent class itself. So this is how we define inheritance in Python. Now if you remember the initializer function, the initializer function used to create the default attributes when we were instantiating any object. But unfortunately, during inheritance process, the child class cannot inherit the properties of the parent class or the properties of the initializer function specifically. So for example, if I remove everything here and define our class, let's say we have to write class followed by parent, and within the parent we initialize our object, so we will write def underscore underscore init, and in that we will pass the self name and let's say std, and we will create an attribute will be automatically created every time we will instantiate our object, and in that we will store the name and std value. And now if we create a child class and now we want to inherit these properties of the initializer function, then we can do that by first defining the initializer function of the child class, and within that we pass the name and the std, and now here we call the initializer function of the parent class. So we will write parent dot init underscore self name and std. And now if I define another function in this child class, let's say define view which takes in self and it just gives self dot name and self dot std in output. Now if I define a variable named a and instantiate it as an object of the child class, we have to inherit the properties within the parent class, so we will write parent. Now if we want to create an object of the child class, and within the child class we write the name, let's say John, with the std of 5, and if I run the view function again, that is a dot view, we have an error that we have missed the double underscore sign here. So if we rewrite again and if we pass it, we get John 5. So as you can clearly see that now we are accessing the initializer function of the parent class from the child class itself, and we are creating the attribute that is name and std just after we create or instantiate our object from the child class. So this is how we define Python inheritance and the initializer function in the inheritance concept. So what are the different types of inheritance in Python? There are basically 4 different types of inheritances in Python, namely single inheritance, multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance and hierarchical inheritance. So let's understand them in detail. The first type of inheritance, we have the single inheritance. The single inheritance is when there is only one level of inheritance. There is one child class and one parent class. So for example, if we delete this everything and we defined a class as parent which does nothing like define func1, within func1 we pass the self such that it print I am parent, and define another class named child, and in this we want to inherit the properties of the parent class, so we will write parent followed by the name of the function, let's say function2, and pass self, and let's say it prints that I am a child. Now if I instantiate an object of the child class and call the different function, that is function1 and function2, we get I am a parent and I am a child in the output. So it is a very pretty basic inheritance. We have a parent class and a child class, and the child class inheriting properties from the parent class itself. Now the second type of inheritance we have is the multiple inheritance. The multiple inheritance is when a child class inherits properties from the multiple classes. So let's say, for example, in our same example, let's say we have another class, let's say parent 2, and it does nothing, it has another function called, let's say function3, which just print that I am a second parent. And now we have to inherit the properties of these two classes, both of these classes, that is parent1 and parent2 classes within this child class. So we will write parent comma the name of the second parent class, which is parent2 here. And now if I call the name of the function 3 which belongs to the parent2 class, and if I run this again, we have an error. Sorry, we write t here, we have to remove this t. And now if I run this again, now as you can clearly see that we have instantiated an object of the child class, and from this child class we are calling the function of the two different parent classes, namely parent and parent2 class, and we are accessing their function, namely function 1 and function 3, and we are getting these kinds of output, that is I am a parent, I am a child, and I am a second parent. So this is an example of multiple inheritance in Python. Now like multiple inheritance, we have a multi-level inheritance as well. So multi-level inheritance is when the child class inherits properties from the parent class but also gives properties to another child class. So for example, let's remove all of this. We have a first parent class, let's say parent, that does nothing, just tell that I am a parent. Now let's say we have another class which inherits properties from this parent class, that is child, and let's say parent, and we write define function to pass self and print I am a child. And let's say now we want to inherit the properties of this child class into another class, so let's say class grandchild, which inherits the properties of the child class, followed by function 3, we just do nothing, just tell that I am a grandchild. Now if I instantiate an object of the grandchild, that is grandchild, and access the different function, that is func1, func2 and func3, then if I run this, sorry, we have to remove this underscore, and now if I run this again, we get I am a parent, I am a child, and I am a grandchild. So the object or our A is a object of the grandchild class, but it is inheriting the properties from the parent class, and it is inheriting the properties from the child class itself. So it is inheriting the properties in two multiple levels. So we will say that this is an example of multi-level inheritance. Now the another type of inheritance which we want to discuss is hierarchical inheritance. So hierarchical inheritance happens when the same parent class gives properties to multiple child classes. So for example, let's remove all of this, and let's say we have a class called parent, in which we have a function called func1, in which we pass self, and it does nothing, it just says I have two childrens. And now if I define two child classes, that is child1, which inherits properties from the parent class, and it has some function, let's say function 2, in which we pass self, and it print I am the first child. And we have another class called child2, which also inherit properties from the parent class, such that we pass self and it print I am the second child. Now if we instantiate the object of both of these classes, so let's say A is the object of child 1 and B is the object of child 2, and we call the functions basically a dot func1, that is the function of parent class, and from B we also call the function of the parent class. Now if I run this, we get an output that I have two children and I have two children. That is, the both of the objects A and B of the classes child 1 and child 2 are accessing the function of the parent class, that is I have two children, and it is accessing them. So this is how two classes are inheriting the properties from the parent class. Similarly, we can call the individual classes individual function of their classes. So let's say if we write a dot func2 and we call it, we get I am the first child, and similarly if I write b dot func3, then I get I am the second child. So this is how the hierarchical inheritance work in Python. So the last concept we want to discuss is the method overriding. So for example, let's say we defined a class called parent. Let me remove all of this. So let's say we define a class called parent, and in which we have a function called func1, and it does nothing, it just say that print I am 1. And now if we define a inheriting class, let's say child, which takes on the properties of the parent class, and within that we define a function of the same name as the parent class, that is func1, and pass the self and print I overrided. Then if we instantiate an object class that A is equals to child, and now we call the function 1, that is a dot func1. Now then, as you can clearly see that both of these classes, that is the parent class and the child class, has the function 1. But what would be our output? So if I will run this, we get an output I overrided, that is the function of the child class overrided the function of the parent class. So this is how the method overriding works in Python. So that's all for this session, and in the next session we will see the concept of polymorphism and encapsulation in Python. Thank you.